while I'm the only Black woman in my band, I'm in a band with so many demographics represented that when we travel, I got to learn it depends on where we are, who is going to be the victim of racism or sexism or hatred that day.
Hey everybody, it's Linda Lorelle and welcome to a new episode of Our Voices Matter. I am thrilled today about this conversation that you're about to hear. It is with Kam Franklin, the lead singer of the Houston-grown soul group, The Suffers. And Kam is a powerhouse. She's so smart. She is so funny and so talented and just has a lot to offer. This conversation has a little bit of something for everyone. If you happen to be an aspiring creative, whatever your medium, you definitely are going to want to hear what Kam has to say about the business side of the business. I was especially fascinated by the conversation we had about the experiences that she and her band have as they crisscross the country and can almost predict how they are going to be seen and treated depending on where they are and which person in the band is going to be targeted. Very interesting conversation, very eye-opening about kind of where we are as a country right now. So much that this young woman has to offer. She's got a brand new album coming out as a solo artist, as well as a new album coming out with her band. We have a lot to talk about. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Kam Franklin, it is such a pleasure to have an opportunity to talk with you and learn more about what you and your fabulous band, The Suffers, are up to these days. So why don't we start there? What are you guys doing during this pandemic madness?
Yes. Well, like every other band, we had to shut down all of our touring and figure out a new way, not only to generate income, but also connect with our fans. And so we have been working on our third full-length record, and thankfully that's coming to a close so that we can start to release new content. We are working on a holiday show, and this has been a really just implemental time for us to just work on everything we always said we were going to work on. So covers, fun stuff, all the boring admin side of being in a band or regular business, and we've just been really trying to focus on connecting better together and figuring out how to stay within communication, because like any other relationship, being in a band is that. And, quarantine and COVID has really put a really big strain on, I think, everyone's relationships and the way that we look at them. And so it's just been a really heavy focus on staying together, staying lifted, and working with what we got.
Staying lifted. There you go. I know. So can you give us an idea of what the new album is about? Can you give us a theme or a title or anything?
Yes. I keep wanting to say the title again, but I was told recently that we weren't announcing it just yet. But the theme itself is perseverance. Next year we'll make 10 years of the big band that could, I guess. And it was something that we were always told wouldn't last. And anybody that has that entrepreneurial spirit, I think once you go into year 5 and then into year 10 and you see that you're still here and you're still doing this, it's what keeps you going. And so without any intent to be in line with what COVID has done to a lot of our relationships or to us as people, we had written a record about the importance of staying together and the importance of leading with love and how it affects everything that we do and how we exist as not only a band, but just as human beings, and how not leading with love can really bring everything down around us. And so it's a testimony to our love for one another and our love for making music. So I'm excited to share all the details as soon as they give me the green light.
Oh man, I can't wait to hear it because that is right up my alley. It is all about leading with love, and it is all about lifting each other up, and just trying to find that commonality and just celebrating our lives as humans on this planet together. So I want to explore all of that, but the first thing I want to do is go back to 10 years ago when you started the band, because the way I understand it, if I did my research right, you had a 9 to 5, right? And then you just quit that job. So what's that story? Tell us the story of what happened there and how you decided to just go for your dream.
Yeah, we all had regular jobs. I worked at an investment bank. I was a gas and power trade analyst. My guitar player, Kevin, worked at NASA. We had a bunch of teachers in the band, people just doing different kind of gigs, and we had the opportunity to go on Letterman after a series of just playing really successful local and regional shows over the years. And we got discovered the old school way, and we played his show the last few weeks that he was on the air. And he said a line after we got done, which was, "If you can't do this, get out of the business." And we've been in the business ever since. So that's
wow.
what it is.
So it was the Letterman appearance, a performance that really you guys said, okay, this is it. We're going to do it. Wow.
Yeah.
So you quit your jobs after being on Letterman, and what happened right after that? I mean, how did things go?
We got thrown into the ringer, which, I am so grateful that I've gotten to experience it the way that I have, which was as an independent artist, and really having to rough it and grow a different type of appreciation for this job, because it wasn't happy-go-lucky all the time. We basically had to tour the old school way, which is city to city to city, people that really hadn't heard of us, and, a lot of word of mouth. And for the years that followed after Letterman, I want to say, especially those first 2 years, we had a great wave that led us to playing on The Daily Show and playing on Jimmy Kimmel Live and NPR Tiny Desk. And we were able to build a very substantial following just, from that grassroots style. But it's one of those things where, like, they don't tell you how hard it's going to be. Like, they prepare you a little bit, but I learned in my journey that the reason they don't tell you how hard it is because a lot of them don't make it, and a lot of them don't last. And, a lot of them aren't allowed to say how hard it can be, but I'll say it because, I don't have anybody weighing on me. The road is very racist. It's very sexist. It's very classist. But the thing is that we keep showing up every day because we love playing music and we love one another. And I feel like it always outweighs all the negativity that seems to come our way. I've learned that if you're Black or brown or you love a different way and you're out here being free, you are going to encounter different types of hardships throughout your life. It's just part of what it is. However, that persistence is what has allowed us to keep thriving and to keep going back out there and to keep really, pissing everybody off when we show back up again. They're like, how are they still here? I swear I ruined this for them. Like,
I love success is the best revenge, right? Right?
Ooh, it is.
Yeah. And hence everything that you just said, the name of the new record, Perseverance, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe
so
not the name, but that's the theme. Excuse me, not
yes.
the name. I don't want to out you there. So yeah. Okay. So the theme of the new record, Perseverance. So wow, you said so much there that I want to pick up on. So being out on the road is racist and sexist and classist.
But it's also fun as hell.
And fun as hell. That's the best, which gets you through all of that other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? Let's talk first about the racism. Mainly because I know you have written some pieces about your personal experiences of growing up here in Houston. and, some things that have happened along the way, your dad, your family really kind of preparing you for what it's like to live, in America as a Black woman. So talk to our audience a little bit about that, what your perspective is and how you are utilizing that in your art, really, to reflect what you do.
Definitely. I would say that I'll work backwards in that, if I didn't have art and God, like, honestly, I don't know how I would be able to get through most days. And so I use my music, my visual art, my voice, whatever it is that I choose to use as the outlet that day as my way to get a lot of that negativity out, that weight that comes with, having to reject the hatred of others, the jealousy of others, the gossip of others. And it also is a mix of like me having to almost like hype myself up and remind myself that, look, this is the right path. No, you're not crazy. No, like there's a lot of like going back and forth that I think exists for Black women in all industries, especially on the creative side, where you have to almost like tell yourself that you are being gaslit sometimes, or tell yourself that, they are trying to make a mockery of, the things that you're complaining about or the things that you're calling out. And so instead of allowing that type of opposition to drive me insane, I tap in a lot to history. I try to read up on the Black women that came here before me. And I don't mean just like modern Black women. I mean the women that were coming up trying to be singers during the civil rights movement. Your Aretha Franklins and your Sarah Vaughns, during the times where they probably had to really do some maneuvering to get a hotel when they were on tour, because
Nancy Wilson's another one.
People where they wouldn't even allow us to tour comfortably. And like, I try to like keep those things in my mind, whatever it is that I like am speaking up about. Because I'm like, they had to go through that so that I could make these basic complaints.
Exactly.
And sometimes, people see it as that, like a basic complaint. But I'm like, if I speak up on this, then the young woman that comes after me can maybe have a more pleasurable experience, because the people that came before me did what they needed to do.
So I was reading one of your articles, and you did not always speak up. It took a minute for you to get there. So what was that journey like?
Well, it was a mix of a few things. While I always had the training to speak up, like I was always a good public speaker, and I had a lot of teachers and stuff that really nurtured that. Abuse is something that can create silence in places where even the loudest of people, would normally speak up. And, as someone that was abused at a very young age, it took me a long time to learn the difference between speaking up for myself and speaking up just to like be heard, and for a long time in my life, I always felt like I wasn't being heard because I had to deal with suppression and control and just like different forms of abuse from different people throughout my life. But I would say it was around my mid to late 20s where, I learned it was on the road where I learned, if I am not extremely clear about when things are offending me, when things are oppressing me, when things are holding me back, people are going to make assumptions for me. People are going to speak for me. And it was something that I just couldn't take anymore. And that also applied to the treatment of other people throughout this industry. I am in a band. While I'm the only Black woman in my band, I'm in a band with so many demographics represented that when we travel, I got to learn it depends on where we are, who is going to be the victim of racism or sexism or hatred that day. And
wow.
Give me
an example. Give me an example. Okay. So first of all, share with our audience what the demographics of your band are, and then give us an example.
Okay. So I am a Black woman. My trumpet player is a white man. My drummer is half Jewish, half Hispanic. My guitar player is Puerto Rican. My trombone player is Mexican. My percussion player is Mexican. My bass player is an openly trans woman. And I think that's our makeup. And
wow,
it's one of those things where you go around the world together and you get to see what it's going to be. And sometimes you can guess and sometimes you don't. So like, I know that when we play North Carolina, Juliet and myself are the most at risk.
Juliet being the openly trans woman.
Yes.
Got it.
And she's absolutely incredible, by the way. But I know that if we're in, say, the Pacific Northwest, if we're in certain parts of the Midwest, no one's looking at me, no one's looking at Juliet, but they are looking at the Mexicans in my band, especially the darker ones. And I've seen them followed around stores. And, it's something that a lot of them weren't really noticing at first because you grow up in Houston. It's such an international city. It's such a bubble. It's such a melting pot. It gets called that all the time. And so you're used to being surrounded by everybody. But I didn't know until I started touring that there are certain parts of the country where you won't see another person that looks like you and I for days. And when you do see them, they look at you like they're so excited.
Like
they're so excited to see you, and they want to know where you're from. And it's just like, it's really bizarre. And it lets me know like where the gaps are in the cities and throughout the country. But it's just a part of America that sometimes people like to pretend doesn't exist. But when you do what we do and you go literally east, west, up, down, side, down, like we have, and that, in a non-COVID world we would be doing, really get to see what America looks like. And it's a very beautiful place, but sometimes it can just be so ugly. And it's one of those things where I knew going into this that it was going to be hard. But the advice that I've gotten from the people that are at the very, very top that have been doing this forever has always been to just keep doing it. Like one of the first big pieces of advice we ever got, we opened for Lionel Richie at ACL Live. And he was like, y'all have to stay together. And he looked at me and he's like, they're going to try to make you go solo. It's going to happen. It's going to happen over and over again. Do not let them break y'all up. And I was like, okay. And 10 years later, he was right. And I'm so glad he did it. Yeah, he was right. Because the only reason that they would have, separated me is because in their mind, and I say they as in like a lot of the major labels that we're trying to do, sniff around, they thought, oh, well, she's easy to market as a solo artist, not realizing, well, the song is what drove you here. The sound is what drove you here. We created this together. We went through this together. And while, yes, I'm capable of doing a whole bunch of stuff on my own, and I produce music and compose music on my own, and it's something I love to do. This particular project is something that, I made a commitment to. And the longer I spend in this industry, the more I learn, they were trying to get me to stop doing this, not because it's not possible, but because it's hard. But, I've never been afraid of a challenge. And I sometimes will tell people in the industry, I'm like, I come from the land of Beyonce and Barbara Jordan, like a challenge is not a thing to me. But, I've learned that sometimes when people haven't faced as much opposition, or they haven't dealt with as many life challenges or multitasking situations, they automatically look at me and assume that I'm incapable. And I've just learned to stop like selling what I could possibly do and to just do it. Like, I'll show up and it's done, rather than like, well, let me talk about how I'm going to do this for you. You know, like I've learned like that type of communication is better time spent inside of a grant application, inside of, you know, writing out a story, you know, or inside of writing something that can be profitable for me, because that's what this is. And I feel like that was the advice that came from Lionel all those years ago was, you know, I can be a Lionel Richie, but I can also have my Commodores, and, you know, we can come together and we can do what we do. And, you know, as I got older, I started seeing other artists do, even just recently, my friend, Brittany Howard from the Shakes, you know, she's doing her solo thing and they have their record in the can, but it's like, when you set your business up the right way and you get it to flow and you have that teamwork and that vision, you can do whatever you want to do if that's what you want to take on in your life. And I'm learning like, wow, okay, I really am in control of the type of life that I want to lead. It's just how much work I want to put in, how much capital I can raise. And if I can't raise it, like, can I find a grant for this? Can I make this work within something that affects and helps and benefits the community so that I can keep doing this art stuff? Because I've been trained to do this, you know, I've been trained to give back, whether I realize it or not. And, you know, I wish more artists would tap into that side of themselves instead of automatically assuming that, man, I have to have a label telling me what to do. I have to have all these masters telling me what to do and how to be, only to later blow up on my own and then, feel like, you know, you have no control. And that's not directed towards any artist or anybody in particular, but it's like, it's something that happens all the time. And all we can do as the Suffers and myself as Kam Franklin is figure out how to do what we are doing better every day, and like how we can work together better and have more fun doing what it is that, you know, allows us to do our favorite thing and make money. But you know, I love the fact that you're talking about the business side of the business, and it's not just creating the art, you know, creating the music, because I think so many young artists from you know, the little bit that I know, don't really learn enough about the business side of it, and so they get taken advantage of. Oh yeah. And then not having a record label. So you're doing all of this yourself, right? You own your stuff, right? We don't own our second record for another few years because that was a licensing deal, but we will own it in a few years. But, you know, like, our first record, we own. Our first EP, we own. Take Me to the Good Times that just came out, we own. And this record that we're about to finish right now, we own, you know. And if we choose to partner with a label, you know, like that's the thing. And you are 1,000% right. You know, whether you feel like you know that much about the industry or not, but so many artists do get taken advantage of because what is sold to us is the glitz and the glamour, right? And the potentiality of fame and being popular. We are not sold sustainability. We are not sold benefit plans. We are not sold anything in regards to retirement. We are not sold protections as artists. Even right now, a lot of artists and the people that work for us are seeing how we are viewed in the eyes of, you know, the government, just through the way that we were either paid out or not paid out through the CARES Act and the expiration of the CARES Act. And, you know, like my head doesn't have any more space to even think about that right now. But it's infuriating. And, you know, it's something that exists in my brain as.
So wait a second. So you're saying that artists were treated differently under the CARES Act. So do explain. I don't know about this.
Okay. So a perfect way to explain it. So, and I'll try to do the best job that I can, because there are so many different like versions of how this would be explained. So I can only explain this in terms of independent music side. I have no idea how the artists on the labels are being paid, because those are all contracted deals, right? But on the independent music circuit, most artists are considered either contractors or independent contractors, freelancers, whatever, as far as the IRS is concerned. And most companies, because you're being paid as a contractor, you know, you wouldn't be eligible for unemployment or whatever and all that stuff, right? So when something like this happens, even though if technically the world were normal, you'd be paid as a contractor, you'd be getting the money you need, you'd be getting everything you need. It's the same as it is for the bartenders right now. It's the same as it is for people working at a lot of like design firms and stuff. So like if you're not a part of a huge corporation, you're just having to sit and wait until your business can open back up again, unless you have some form of passive way to get your income, right? However, when it came to the CARES Act, unless like you were registered a certain way with the government, like there was just no way to get that money. And a few people were able to get it after they expanded it, but a lot of people still weren't able to get it. And a lot of people still haven't gotten it. Now, and I say that in terms of like, most people that I know are independent contractors, like they file their taxes the same way and do what they have to do. But so they got like the stimulus check, but they didn't get, like, they weren't eligible for.
They didn't get the PPP money, or they
weren't even eligible to apply
for unemployment or to apply.
And
so how have you and your band, The Suffers, adapted so that you can continue to make money and survive during this pandemic?
You know, we've been figuring out just new waves, honestly, every single day. So when this first happened, this was like the week before South by, I am the type of person where, okay, the building's on fire, you know, we're having a freak out, like, okay, let's make a plan, or I already have a plan or whatever. And so when this happened, I was like, all right, I already have a home set up. I can do shows by myself, right? But we were like, oh, no, nobody wants to see that. And that was also when COVID was just launching. So at first we were like, oh, well, they said we can social distance. We can, you know, have people at this distance. So we did a show at my house, actually behind me, where it was like 6 or 7 of us. And then we got, oh, we love this. But then you guys shouldn't be that close. There's too many of y'all. So, okay, great. So we went to one person. So it was me every week on Facebook Live doing these like almost karaoke style, but to full band performance instrumentals every week for free. And we would just work off of tips, and our fans would donate to that. And around the time of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd's deaths, I just couldn't do it weekly anymore. And it wasn't because like I felt like the fans didn't deserve it or something. Like it crippled me. And I was like, I can't show up here and pretend like I'm fine because the show is going to suffer. And it took me about being off for like a month and a half to like really be able to come back and even do the virtual. Cause I was like, I really don't want to be on, you know, I don't, you know, and like, that was my energy. I was just like, I just want to be mad right now. I just want to be upset right now. And
so how did you turn that, that feeling of, being angry and upset at what is going on in the country, especially, you know, your description of, I mean, that's really sticking with me. Your description of crisscrossing the country with your band, of, you know, really reflecting the full diversity of America. Okay. And knowing that when you go to certain parts of the country, certain people are going to be treated in a certain way. So when you think about all of that, and then you look at the aftermath of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and all of that, and the anger and the pain that you feel, what do you do to channel that as an artist? How are you channeling that as an artist?
Well, I went to the protest that happened in Houston the day before they buried George Floyd before his funeral here. And it really lifted a lot off of me. And maybe it was being around the people and like seeing people that were just as sad as me. But also running into people and then being, reminding me like, man, your shows have just been really lifting me up and like really, lifting the spirit up. And, it's hard to know the type of impact you're having when you're just performing to your cell phone. And it's very strange. And it encouraged me to start thinking like, okay, I can't keep going to these protests, not because I don't want to be here, but because my COVID anxiety was going through the roof. And also I felt like channeling through art was my better form of protest. And so I started working on this record called the Bayou City Comeback Chorus, which I'm wrapping up the end of this month, hopefully. But I was given a grant through the city of Houston last year to work on this project. And the whole idea was to bring in singers from different marginalized communities that maybe wouldn't be given the opportunity to necessarily be on a project like this because of who they love, their age, whatever, and it was kind of like the Suffers record where I wasn't intending to write for the moment, but that's just what ended up happening. And so it has become a psychedelic gospel funk record with 4 songs on it and 25 choral parts, all done in quarantine. But the songs all reflect on the anxieties of going through a racial epidemic, the absolute need to come together as a community so that we can move forward, and not just in terms of legislation that affects like every big community, but really, really with a heavy focus on education. Because I always feel when racism is thick in a community, education is low. And and that's just how I feel about it, because you can't convince me that you're an educated person and that you hate people because of who they are, what they look like. Because we have seen throughout history what happens when that's how you lead, when that's how you treat people. And so this album will actually be the first time that I am stepping out as an executive producer. And I composed everything and I arranged everything. And I realized like during the creation of all of this, oh my gosh, like I'm giving myself these keys. I'm giving myself this permission. I'm giving myself these titles because the society I live in is not going to give it to me because they think that I'm incapable. And it goes back to the whole me no longer explaining what it is I'm going to do and just showing up with it, because that's how I had to start functioning. Because the opportunities, I was like, man, how do these people get these opportunities with nothing but just pitching? Meanwhile, I had to show up with this, that, and, and everything. And, after talking to my family about it, it's like, they're like, that's just what it is sometimes. Like, that's just what it is. And when I started thinking about it like that, like the complaining aspect of it in my life just really disappeared. And like the ego part of it really just shut down. And I was like, okay, well, how can I do a better job of like getting people to help themselves? And it was literally just by leading by example. And so like that's where my protest is. That's how my output is coming out now, is creating this music that is representing the time, representing what we're going through, while still allowing myself to get that creative release out. And, it's allowing me to go back into the projects that I work on, either with the Suffers or with other people, just with this newfound, like just appreciation of everything.
an expansion of your skill set.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, oh my goodness, I can't wait to hear this album. So this is the one that you executive produced and are doing on your own alongside the what you're doing with The Suffers, right? So you've got two projects that you're working simultaneously, and they're both coming out soon, right?
Yeah, so the Bayou City Comeback Chorus album will come out first, and I should be actually doing and announcing the final presentation for that in the next few days, actually. I need to look at the calendar on that. And then the Suffers album will be out sometime in 2021. So we're just over the moon, and there's so many surprises involved with it that we're just like, if I could, I would just be like, this is happening and this is happening. But I'm learning I have to chill. So
you have to chill, right? Okay. Well, I won't play the pushy reporter and try to get it out of you. But I will ask you to keep me updated, because I'm so excited for you. And man, I love your aura and just how you approach life and what you're doing for yourself and for others, and just how you are moving through the world, in positivity and leading with love. That's the thing. That's the thing. So I guess you can tell I'm a huge fan. And
thank you.
I just really urge our audience to start following you if they're not already doing so, and stay abreast of the beautiful work that you're putting out into the universe to help remind us of our humanity and keeping us moving in a positive direction.
Thank you so much. Yes, please follow us. It's always a good time. Folks can keep up with the band. Everything is at The Suffers. And I am at Bam It's Kam on Instagram and at Kam Franklin on everything else. Excellent. So Kam, it has been a pleasure, and can't wait to see what's next. In the meantime, just stay safe and stay healthy, be blessed, and stay in touch. Okay, we'll talk again soon. Same to you. Thank you so much for having me, and happy holidays. Same to you, sweetie. Same to you. I told you, wasn't that fun? She's amazing. I'm such a fan, as you can tell. So I hope that you will follow Kam and stay abreast of what she is doing. And she gave you all of her handles on social media. And we, of course, will also have them in the show notes on our Voices Matter podcast. So thanks again for tuning in, watching, listening, reminding you to please remember to give each other permission to speak and have the courage to listen with an open mind. Stay well, stay healthy. We'll see you next time.